So good morning, everyone. We are back to the study of Between Heaven and Earth. As usual, let me start by sharing what we studied last month. So those that missed or forget what we are studying can remember. We studied chapters 27 and 28. On chapter 27, Odila comes. Remember, before she was left there to learn by herself the needs of her son Julio. So she comes and requests the assistance of Clarencio for the reincarnation of Julio. She learns that the best path for him is a reincarnation, so he can efficiently recover from the extensive wound in his throat. We learn also by the aid of friendship in the preparation of a reincarnation under better conditions, as Clarencio asks Odila what friendships that she made during her last existence to help assist in the reincarnation process. And then we learn how the damage to the reincarnation happens. I almost just sent a message that he's struggling to get in to connect. So the harm when unprepared, we allow antipathy to grow around us. That's, also both in the physical and spiritual world, and we see all the struggles that Odila had because of her obsessive processes. So then Zulmira, during her sleep, is taken by Sister Clara and Odila to the home of Blessing Larda Benson to visit Julio. He's been taken care there. And Zulmira, very moved, commits to receive Julio as her first child, thereby repaying the debt of conscience that she owed to the boy, the guilty conscience that she had. And then on chapter 28, we learn about the program for Julio's reincarnation that would be for a short period, addressing the need to resolve a moral commitment related to suicide. So he had to repair the damage he has done to himself by committing suicide. He tried to poison himself, and then he threw himself in the river when he failed to poison himself. And then we study the automatic reincarnation process, which is the case of Julio, which is just a personal reincarnation. There is nothing besides it, no mission involved. When we have a mission, it's a more elaborated process of reincarnation, and that's what we learn, the difference between common reincarnation and one with specific problems, and how common and automatic reincarnation processes work, and the law of cause and effect operating in the automatic processes of reincarnation. And we study a little bit about the maternal womb, the anemic vessel of high magnetic power, or a living mold designed for casting and recasting of forms under the creative breath of divine goodness. I don't think we need this schedule today. We know that Julio is going to reincarnate by Zulmira. He was Amaro in a previous life. He was the son of Amaro and Zulmira. Amaro was Armando in the previous life, and Julio was also Julio, and they had all these issues together. So let me stop, share this, and start sharing the chapter. Any questions for related to last month's, or we're good? Okay. So Zoraida, can you start reading for us?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Chapter 29, regarding reincarnation. The following evening, at our request, Lorenzo took us to Amaro's home for observations. We respectfully entered the room where Odelia happily and kindly welcomed us. Everything seemed to be going as planned. Julio was sleeping. He had not awakened again. His guardian stated happily. I had the impression that the reincarnating spirit was disappearing little by little into Sumila's organic constitution, as if the future mother were a miraculous filter that was absorbing him. The discarnate mother seemed satisfied and hopeful. She liked seeing the boy enveloped in deep sleep. His afflictions and groans had torn at her heart. That is why rebirth was a blessing for her stress-filled maternal responsibilities. We noticed that Julio's subtle body had undergone an enormous, startling change. It had shrunk considerably. It seemed to me that both he and Sumila, soul with soul, were immersing into each other. The young woman had acquired physical fullness and spiritual vivacity, whereas the boy was losing his outward appearance. Julio had peacefully gone to sleep, whereas Sumila displayed a remarkable awakening to life. She too had changed appreciable. Like persons happy for having received new responsibilities where they work, she seemed happier about and more aware of her own obligations. The fluidic transfusion was obvious. The maternal organism was like an albitic used for refining the reincarnating spirit's energies in order to restore them to him as his new envelope developed.
Thanks, Zoraida. So here, Andre Luiz is describing the process of reincarnation, both on the spiritual and the physical level, right? Because when we talk about the reincarnation process, we know, and we studied that in the Spirit's book recently, that the spirit is connected to the new physical body that is being formed from the moment of conception. So the connection happens slowly, takes all pregnancy, and we read also that in the Spirit's book, that the new physical body is fully formed once the baby is born. Until the baby is born, it's forming. The connection is always there between the reincarnating spirit.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, Elmo, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Finally. The reincarnation spirit, and then the future mother. So what Andre Luiz is describing here, that the reincarnating spirit was disappearing little by little. What does he means by that? We have a perispirit, a spiritual body, right? The spiritual body consists of matter of the world we are incarnated. So as this spiritual body is shrinking little by little to unite with the little seed that is the beginning of the new physical body, the matter that belongs to the perispirit, but also belongs to the planet, in this case Earth, also starts to shed. If we think about, for us to understand it better, we have to think of discarnation, right? When the physical body dies, the spirit disconnects, goes back to the spiritual world. This we understand. What happens to the physical body? Disintegrates little by little, and it goes back to nature, right? All forms, all things belonging to the physical body, which is matter, belonging to the planet Earth, goes back to nature. The process of reincarnation, we have to make an analogy with this discarnation with a spiritual body, that it starts shedding the parts that are not necessary for the new physical / spiritual body to form. He's going to have a spiritual body with a new physical body, but it's shrinking to the size of the new physical body that is being formed. And also, as Andre Luiz says, we see Julio's subtle body had undergone an enormous, startling change, had shrunk considerably. So he and Zulmira, soul with soul, were immersing into each other. The union of the new spirit and the new body being formed and the spirit reincarnating, and the mother connects to each other in a very strong bond, like they are. It's a fusion process almost. It's not really, but that's how we can think of. So Julio starts losing his outward appearance. Everything happens as he is sleeping, peacefully sleeping. And in the other hand, pregnancy causes a lot of changes in the woman's body, and we know that, right? In this case, Zulmira displays a remarkable awakening to life. We remember that she was struggling with all her guilty conscience, with all the difficulties she was having in her family, and she begins to change appreciably, like people happy for receiving new responsibilities. And then Andre Luiz says that maternal organism was like an alembic used for refining the reincarnation spirit's energy. He compares it to a spirit, right? A spirit in the sense of drinking, that it's used an alembic to refine. Okay? I think that's it here. Any questions? Elmo, anything to add here? You're mute, Elmo. I don't know if you want to say anything, but...
Yeah, it would be easier if anybody would have a question so it could address this specific question. Otherwise, we're just going to be repeating everything that you already said.
Okay.
Because later on, especially in the next chapter, Clarence's going to give a lot more explanation of those things that you just mentioned right now. He's going to go extensively on that, right?
Yeah.
But I think I have to make open a big parenthesis here, is that we could call this reading right now something like transdimensional medicine, transdimensional studies of fertilization and gestation, okay? And this is not medicine as we know. It's not the study of biological sciences as our sciences understands it, okay? Hopefully, eventually, I believe we will. Those two sciences will, get together and work together. But so far, what it's doing here is seeing things to a level, to a dimension that our science does not recognize. Okay, I think it's very important that we make that distinction. I know it's pretty obvious, but I think as a center, we have to make sure that you say, we're not talking about medicine here, okay? We're talking about transdimensional medicine, if you want, prefers. Transdimensional studies of fertilization and gestation. Not to compromise ourselves, okay? Because somebody say, those guys think that they know medicine, they practice medicine. We are not. Absolutely not, okay? But I can understand everything that Clarence said here so far. That this new life form inside the woman almost takes autonomy to take whatever it needs from that woman's organs, develops its own means of getting whatever it needs. It forms its own placenta. And I'm saying that for you to understand how deep it is, this fusion, this connection of those two independent lives living together here now, which the fetus the embryo, they will develop into fetus, right? The formation of that new life. This symbiotic is more than symbiotic relationship, actually. That new life coming in has so much autonomy and has even priority, so to say, over the mother's organ itself. What I mean by that? Let's say that for the formation of that new body forming, there is requirement, immense amount of a lot of things, right? Iron, very specific amino acids, proteins, right? Calcium. And let's assume that the mother is not consuming enough calcium. Baby gonna say, no problem, I'll take calcium from your bones. That's the level of priority that new life takes. And the baby will not be depleted of iron, of calcium, but the mother will. You may not notice it now, but no, a few years ahead, she start to have osteoporosis, and that could be because of it. I.e., the very important necessity to have supplemental gestation nutrients, and be very carefully seen by obstetrician to make sure that mom and baby get everything that they need to stay healthy now and in the future. But all that I'm saying here is what Clarence is saying here makes a lot of sense, is pretty much compatible with the medical sciences, although two different things as of now. I have to stress that as much as possible. But if we make that comparative approach, we see that things make sense and go together.
Thanks. Yeah. The only detail here so far is Andre Luiz talking. Clarence is going to start talking now.
Oh, there is, okay.
Yeah. That was Andre Luiz explaining all to us. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Soraya.
Okay. Noticing our wonder, Lorenzo explained with his usual kindness. Reincarnation, like discarnation, is one of the most telling biological shocks, united to the generative matrix of the maternal sanctuary as it seeks out its new form. The perispirit is subject to the influence of strong electromagnetic currents, which impose automatic reduction on it. Constituted of chemical principles similar to hydrogen in its properties, expressed through molecules that are significantly far apart. When the perispirit is connected to the female genetic center, it undergoes a remarkable contraction, like a covering of flesh subjected to a strong electric charge, hence the volumetric of
reduction. Volumetric reduction
of the subtle vehicle because of the diminution of space between molecules. Any matter that is not useful for the fundamental work of recasting the form is returned to the ethereal spheres, providing our perispirit with the aspect of wear and tear of greater fluidity. So that means, ventured Hilario in his constructive curiosity, it means that the organic genetic principles essential to Julio's perispirit have already been reduced within the maternal altar, and like a magnet, they are agglutinating upon themselves the resources for shaping the new garment of flesh that will be the next vessel of manifestation. And the form that is being ratified right there in front of us, asks Hilario surprised, it is undergoing dissolution. And with the wonderful serenity that characterized the spirit, Lorenzo continued his explanation. The physical body also seems to sleep during discarnation, when in reality it has begun to give back to nature the chemical units that compose it. The difference between the two processes is that the discarnating soul, even when in deplorable conditions of suffering and inferiority, is advancing to relative liberation, whereas the reincarnating soul is undergoing the process of returning to the webs of dense matter, in spite of being guided by noble objectives of evolution. It is for that reason that, led to organic reconstitution, we relive our entire biological past during the early stages of the fetal organization, albeit quickly. During the reconstruction of the form that will be used while incarnate, each person automatically relives his or her entire past, stopping at the highest configuration that he or she has acquired for his or her endeavor, according to his or her degree of evolution. The simple matter in which Clarenceau explained with complex issues induced us to sublimated thoughts concerning the magnitude of the universal laws. Right there, facing an ordinary case of reincarnation assisted only by our prayers and the worship of fraternity, we received elucidations about the overall plan of existence.
Thanks, Zoraida. So in the beginning here, it's a lot of biology, and that's the explanation. If you want to go back and read, it's a lot of biology. I don't think it's something that we should focus much. The only important thing here is when Clarencio says any matter that is not useful for the fundamental work of recasting the form is returning to the ethereal sphere, providing our perispirit with that aspect of wear and tear of greater fluidity. Meaning, the perispirit is reducing itself, of the new reincarnating spirit, is losing anything that is not useful to it, returning to the great atmosphere of the new planet, of the planet, and just keeping what is necessary for the new perispirit that is being formed. So Hilario asks, the form is being ratified right in front of us, and Clarencio, it is that it is undergoing dissolution. And again, the comparison then Clarencio makes with the physical body that also seems to sleep during this carnation. We're talking about this carnation here. The physical body has begun to give back to nature the chemical units that compose it. It decomposes it, goes back to nature, the physical body. The spirit, which is eternal, goes back to the spiritual world. The physical body dies. The difference between the two processes is that when we are discarnating, even in the worst possible conditions, it's like we are freeing ourselves from prison, which is the physical body that constrains ourselves as eternal spirit, reducing our perceptions, our memories, and everything else. And the reincarnating soul goes the other way around. It's entering into a prison, returns to the webs of dense matter. Of course, guided by the noble objectives of evolution, we need to come back to a new reincarnation. It's our progress. But the process of entering into a physical body, it's similar to entering into a prison. We forget about our spiritual nature, we forget about our past, and we go back to a new physical body. But during the formation of the physical body, that's very important, we relive our entire biological past during the early stages of fetal organization. And this, our science describes, the physical science, the embryo, the forms of the embryo are very similar to the very rudimentary forms of life, right? Starts with a single cell, and then it looks very much like a small animal going through the evolution and the form as the form develops. And why we go through that? We relive our entire path. We go through all phases very quickly, through all phases of our progress, starting from the mineral phase, agglutination process, the vegetable phase, autonomic processes, the animal phase, instinctive process, and rudimentary signs of intelligence, stopping at the highest configuration that he or she has acquired for the endeavor, according to his or her degree of evolution. That process we go through in the womb of the mother during our reincarnation process. Okay? Ebony.
Yes, thank you. When the unnecessary or the unneeded matter is returned to the ethereal sphere, upon discarnation, is that returned to the perispirit?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand. On the discarnation process, the
No.
physical incarnation.
Yes, on the incarnation process here, where it says any matter that is not useful for the fundamental work is returned to the ethereal sphere. I'm wondering if, okay, so it's not useful for the spirit's reincarnation, but upon discarnation, are those matters returned to the perispirit?
No. Go ahead,
okay.
Elmo.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Elmo.
I'm sorry, Ron.
Yeah.
No, it's very unlikely that it would happen.
Okay.
Okay. In this process, is this, let's call it reduction, right, of the perispirit to what is absolutely essential for the formation of this new life. Anything that is considered not necessary will return to nature, so to say, but at a different dimension, right, the spiritual world. It will be reabsorbed, consumed, just like matters that is being transformed here in our physical world is always being recycled, being used something else, right? That's the Lavoisier's law, right? Later, nothing is wasted, nothing is lost, everything is renewed, right? In the spiritual world, we do the same thing. So all those subtle elements matter, if you like, that it's not essential for the perispirit that is forming. Have remembered the perispirit is forming a new physical body now. It's not going to return. It's not really necessary. All what's necessary will be kept. Okay. What I understand this reduction over here. If you imagine, let's say, a sponge, porous. There's a lot of air in it. And this process of the reduction, the sponge, let's say, is 1 by 1 by 1 cubic meter, let's say. If you squeeze that sponge, you can make it to be, let's say, 25 centimeters cubic. You can squeeze that much. The sponge is pretty much still intact, right? It just reduced it to its minimal possible size. Now, on top of that, everything that is not necessary in that sponge, the formation of that new body, and it's not necessary for the manifestation of the eternal spirit, will be thrown away and be reabsorbed, be used by something else that may need it, the way it happens in nature, right? In Lavoisier's laws, once again, right? And as this physical body develops and matures, it will start in the perispirit will start to get things that it's may use, those things that was not necessary, but may become necessary the formation of for the life, for the incarnate life of that of that forming body. It will start getting things again into the perispirit, because there is this two-way route between the perispirit and the physical body also, right? And so much so that the formation of the very last layer, right, the double etheric, it's formed at that moment. And when it's when the physical body dies, that very last layer, the double etheric, doesn't even go back to the spiritual world. So you can assume that there might be other things over there that's not absolutely necessary, just like we have in our body things that is not absolutely necessary. You have an appendix that's not absolutely necessary, can get out of it. The only reason I have appendix today is to put money in the surgeon's pocket, right? We can live without a gallbladder. It has its function, it's good, but if you lose it, you're still going to have a normal life pretty much. So you can imagine that in the, let's say, in the body of the perispirit, there are things that it could be without. And if you lose your appendix, if you lose the gallbladder, you're not going to get it back. So the same thing here with the body of the spiritual body. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you, Elmo.
Thanks. Anything else, Elmo, here to add?
No, I don't think so. I like when the very last that you read, I don't know if you're going to cover that. Right there, face on an ordinary case of reincarnation. I think that's very important. There's an ordinary, there's a routine. It's not very special about this here, as much as we may imagine it be, but this is a routine, it's an ordinary case. We're not even going to the special cases here. This is pretty normal, okay?
Yeah, that was very important. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. When I was reading, I thought about that, but then because I didn't mark, I forgot. Yes, very important here. And the vast majority of cases of reincarnation in our world are ordinary cases of reincarnation. Only the missions, spirits that come, and again, as I mentioned last month, a mission can be a very specific case of helping one person. You know, like in the book Renunciation, Alcyone comes on a mission to help one spirit, or a mission can be of helping many spirits. So if you think of a Mother Teresa, of course, her reincarnation was taken care in a special way, so she could come with the best available abilities to fulfill her path. Doesn't guarantee that she's going to do, because we have free will and we are still imperfect spirits, so we can make mistakes. But when we come on a mission, small, medium, or large mission, then are special cases of reincarnation. The rest are ordinary cases of reincarnation that doesn't need any special assistance, assisted only by our prayers in the worship of fraternity. That's how he describes. Thanks, Elmo. Very important here. Okay. Zoraida.
Okay. Perhaps inspired by the same bandwidth of thoughts that preoccupied our own mind, Hilario asked, do all these principles also apply to circumstances involving animals? Of course, why wouldn't they? Replied our instructor patiently. We are all on the grand march of growth toward immortality, along the infinite lines of instinct, intelligence, reason, and sublimation. We are all connected to the law of rebirth as an inalienable condition of progress. We tackle multiple experiences and we recapitulate them as many times as needed on our grand journey to God. Pupane of intelligence in the obscurest sectors of nature evolve toward the rim of fragmentary intelligences inhabited by animals of a higher order, which in turn evolve toward the rim of human consciousness, just as human beings, little by little, evolve toward the glorious spheres of the angels. The instructor returned his attention to the bed on which mother and son were lying intimately associated and stated, let's concern ourselves with the job at hand. Let's study the case so that our obligation of solidarity may be well fulfilled. This comment reoriented us. Hilario, who like myself was interested in taking advantage of the lesson unfolding before us, asked for an explanation that would be as simple as possible regarding Sumila's and Julio's physiochemical communion at that moment. Clarenzo responded after reflecting a few moments. Let's take, for instance, a ripe peach that has been covered with earth in order to be reborn. As it decomposes, it restores to nature's reservoirs all the elements of its pulp and the other layers that clothe its vital principles. Within the soil, it is reduced to the small seed that will be transformed in space and time into a new peach tree.
Thanks.
Okay.
So what is important here, right? We are all on the grand march toward immortality, of growth toward immortality. This is all us spirits, along the infinite lines of instinct, intelligence, reason, and sublimation. And that's very important here. We come from the animal phase with instinct and with rudimentary intelligence. And then we move to reason, and then when we become perfected spirits or evolved spirits, we go into sublimation. In the book I Return, Voltaire, which is not translated, Brother Jacob learns that humanity, 2/3 of humanity is moving from instinct to intelligence, and 1/3 of humanity is moving from intelligence into reason. What does that mean? When you're moving from instinct to intelligence, instinct prevails, intelligence is used, but we have a hard time distinguishing between good and evil and making the right choices. When we start moving from intelligence, we have acquired intelligence, and we are moving to reason, we become more of an ethical person and moral person, meaning we know the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, and we try to do good as much as possible, try to avoid doing evil as much as possible. Of course, still imperfect spirits, still struggling sometimes, but let's think about us as spirit trying to use our reason to make the right choices. On a planet of regeneration that we're moving into, more than half of the spirits incarnated are on this process of moving from intelligence to reason, and less than 50% are spirits still struggling with moving from instinct to intelligence, but reaching the intelligence part of it. And then he describes our evolutionary path from pupae of intelligence in the obscure sectors of nature. We evolve through the realm of fragmentary intelligence, which is animals of higher order, mammals mostly, which in turn evolve towards the realm of human consciousness. And we, human, evolve little by little towards the glorious spheres of the angels. Okay? And then he makes this comparison, which I think is very interesting here, this analogy with a peach that we put under the soil in order to create a new peach tree, right? So if you bury a peach in the soil, what's going to happen? It's going to decompose. It's going to give back to nature all the elements of its pulp and other layers that are not useful for a new peach tree. Only the small seed that is necessary for the new tree that is being born is used. So that's the analogy he makes with our spiritual body, the perispirit, losing everything that is not necessary and keeping only what is necessary for the new physical body, which is the small seed. Okay, I think this analogy makes us better understand the concept of the perispirit losing its matter that is not necessary. Okay, Elmo, anything here?
Yeah, the very paragraph, the need of repetition, I find very quite interesting, because one of the things that most thinkers will think about when why do you need to go through all this thing, to every reincarnation? Let's just assume our intellectual progress for now, and we need to go through infancy, childhood, the toddlers years, the teenagers, every single reincarnation. What can't you bypass some of those things and now advance as we progress? Perhaps yes, when you learn everything that you need to learn, right? And until then, we need to repeat things. So Clarence here says the need to repeat things. Says we tackle multiple experience and we recapitulate them as many times as needed in our grand journey to God. You know, all of us. I like touching over here, and I think Tom will be still studying, will be fresh in his mind. But we went through when we passed those classes, let's say mathematics, the Pythagoras theorem. Everybody learned that, right? Everybody remembers, everybody can say that, right? Nobody needs to go back to the books anymore because we passed those tests already, right? We graduate from that class already. Every one of us here who completed high school has seen the Krebs cycle, right? Who can tell me the Krebs cycle right now? Who can tell me the simple? Who can find the delta of the equation of second degree here now? We all did that. We all took the test. We passed with A's. Who remembers that now? Who can tell that? So what happens is, you know, next reincarnation, you're gonna have to sit down on the math class and do Pythagoras theorem. We're gonna have to sit on the biology class and do the Krebs cycle again until you really learn. You're gonna repeat as many times as needed. One of the examples that I find very interesting is with dog breeds. I find absolutely amazing that a breed, let's say, of a guard, a dog that is a guard, like a German Shepherd, they have that within them. It just need a very minimal training, if any, is needed to make them to be a guard dog, to protect the family. It's there with them. They learned that throughout. They incorporate that in their makeup so strongly. There is almost like a genetic factor here now. They are guard dogs. You get a retriever who throw the ball for them the first time, they look at you like a crazy. You throw it again, they get it. They have to pick up their ball and bring it to you. It's in their makeup. Because repetition, have it done as many times as needed. And I think this is a very important thing over here. When I say we tackle multiple experiences and we recapitulate, repeat them as many times as needed. And how do we stop doing that? Learning. And how do we know that we learn? Oh, well, the example that I like to use is the so-called the little young geniuses over there, right? The guy with 5 years old or 6 years old can deal with mathematical problems that it's at a doctorate level or university at least level. That when kids are still learning to count, they are already doing integrals. How's that? Repetition. I've done, and now it's learned. It's integrated in that spirit that it brings it. Musician, you see nowadays, now with internet, now 4 or 5 years old, picking up an instrument and playing the instruments that would require most of us a lifetime of practice to be able to do it. You see kids playing the piano that the fingers, it even in the anatomy is not even comparable. Those little fingers play what they're playing. How? Repetition. Have it done. Now they learned it so well that it's integrated in that spirit, that is part of that peri spirit we're talking about here, and it's passed to the physical body, so to say, and they are able to bring to us what they already have with the mathematical skills, with the music skills, and so forth and so on. So I think the word repetition, recapitulation here is a very important word.
I actually saw this week in one of these reality shows, a 2-year-old doing basic math write multiplication and sum, and they will give him numbers, like 63 times 7, and he would write on the board the result. 2-year-old. It was very impressive, very interesting, and that's exactly what Elmo just said. Repetition and brings it to a new incarnation, because it's, why does it bring? Because we all learn in the past and we come back and we forget, because it's already necessary for this journey, this new journey, that he already has this from a young age, and we will use it.
Yeah, well, my point is, did you really learn as the time spirit? Because if you did learn as the spirit and God's job, it's not taken away from us.
Yeah.
Did you really learn the Krebs cycle? Did you really learn as a eternal spirit the Pythagoras theorem, how to find the delta of a second degree equation? Or you just went through the motions to pass a test?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Soraya.
Yes. The lesson could not have been more logical, more precise. So that's why, added Hilario studiously, discarnate children need a longer or shorter period of time to demonstrate mental growth, just as happens during normal existence. That's the case with most of them, although there are exceptions to the rule. In many circumstances, there is no such imposition. When the mind has developed certain qualities, perfecting itself on higher rugs of spiritual sublimation, it can throw from itself the elements required for the composition of the vehicles of exteriorization it needs on planes that may be beneath it. In such cases, the spirit is in full control of the laws of agglutination of matter and the field of struggle familiar to us. And for that reason, it controls the phenomenon of its own reincarnation without subordinating itself to it. We gaze at Sumila's peaceful face as she breathed, serene and happy. Julio's case, on the other hand, I consider it seems really dolorous but instructive, like the case of thousands of people every day, responded Clarenzo. Due to depths acquired in the flesh, our defeated and infirm friend will find the means of his readjustment while in the flesh. What about hereditary? Asked my companion respectfully. By losing the subtle body in which he used to weep in torment, will Julio, since he has fatalistically inherited the biological characteristics of his parents, resurface in physical life without the disease that used to persecute him? Clarenzo smiled expressively and stated, hereditary, as understood scientifically, has its limits. Of course, parents and children, even when far apart, morally speaking, always maintain a mutual magnetic affinity. Thus, the parents furnish certain resources to the reincarnating spirit, but such resources depend on the needs of the soul that uses them, because when it boils down to it, we are actually heirs of ourselves. We assimilate our earthly parents' energies according to our own good or bad qualities for the ennobling or torturous destiny we deserve due to our acquisitions or depths, which, emerging from our previous experiences, return to earth with us. So that means Julio will bring with him the infirmity he suffered while on our plane, just like someone who moves into a new home but brings with him his physical condition, remarked Hilario. Exactly. His problem is spiritual in nature. During Sumila's pregnancy, Julio's mind will remain associated with hers to influence the formation of the fetus. The entire cellular cosmos of the new organism will be impregnated by the infirm thought forces of our reincarnating brother. That being the case, Julio will be born with the deficiencies that he still bears, although blessed by the genetic matter that he will receive from his parents within the bounds of the law of inheritance for the constitution of the new envelope. After a brief pause, Clarenzo concluded, as we can see, the mind is in command. The conscience traces out one's destiny. The body reflects the soul, or aggregation of matter is subject to the impulses of the mind. Our thoughts fabricate the forms that we utilize in life. Our instructor stopped talking. Odelia began to tell us about her hopes for the future. We conversed again animately, and after a prayer by the minister, our delightful meeting ended.
Okay. So some things here. First, all these that I mark here, I was thinking about Paco, right? In English, please. When the mind has developed certain qualities, perfecting self on higher rungs of spiritual sublimation, it can throw from itself the elements required for the composition of the vehicles and so forth, so on and so forth. What is Clarencio is telling us here? We just learned about children in the spiritual world, right? Children that discarnate when they are children and when they are self-aware of being a child, right? So after being, I don't know, something between 1 and 2 years old, a child has a self-awareness of being a person. These children go back to the spiritual world, and we will need a longer or shorter period to demonstrate mental growth, meaning to become a so-called adult back in the spiritual world. So they will stay in the spiritual colonies destined for children to grow, which we just visited in this book, the so-called the blessing home, or the Lar da Bênção in Portuguese, the blessing home, where Julio is recovering, where Odila spent some time with him. Now, for the exceptions, there are exceptions to the rule, as in many cases. So when the spirit is already evolved enough, aware of itself, and in ability to control the elements of its own perispirit, it quickly readjusts itself when going back to the spiritual world to the form of an eternal spirit. So it regains the perispiritual form, most likely of the previous incarnation or other perispiritual form it needs to show, to present itself. It's in full control of the laws of agglutination of matter, and can control the phenomena of its own reincarnation without subordinating itself to it, which means when it goes back to the spiritual world, it regains the form of an adult. When it's coming to a new reincarnation, these more evolved spirits can participate actively in the process of forming this new physical body that is being formed, as it understands the process and can participate. Of course, there is always the assistance of the spiritual benefactors, but the spirit can participate in this process. And I'm going to stop here. Elmo, you have anything to add here, because this is important?
No, not really.
Okay. Julius, it's a painful reincarnation, but instructive, like the case of thousands of people during the due to that acquired in the flesh. He will need the means for here adjustment. And then Hilario asked about heredity, meaning, what do we get from our parents in the formation of the new physical body? We inherit the biological characteristics of the parent. And Clarencio explains that, heredity, as understood scientifically, has its limits. But parents and children, even when they are very far apart, morally speaking, they need to maintain some magnetic affinity, right? Because the child is, the physical body of the child is a product of the parents. So the parents furnish certain resources for the reincarnating spirit, but these resources depend on the needs of the spirit, right? So whatever the new reincarnating spirit needs for the physical body, the advantages and disadvantages that it needs to have in the new physical body, it can receive from the parent. But in the end, the physical body is formed by the spirit itself, because we are actually heirs of ourselves. What does it mean? We are an evolving spirit. We bring with us all the moral qualities that we have, all the moral imperfections that we have, and we have our intellectual abilities also that we bring with us, the ones that are necessary for our next incarnation. So we assimilate our parents' energies according to our own good or bad qualities, according to our necessities. So when Julio is coming to a new reincarnation with the infirmity he suffered, he was suffering on the spiritual world, Hilario compares to someone moving to a new home, right? Your physical body is the same, all your qualities and imperfections are the same in a new home. It's just a new home. That's an analogy to our new physical body. And then Clarencio talks about the problem of Julius, who is the problem is spiritual in nature, so he will remain associated to Zulmira, to her influence on the formation of the fetus, yes, but he will be reborn with the deficiencies that he still bears. The mind is in command. The conscience traces out one's destiny. The body reflects the soul. So all aggregation of matter is subject to the impulses of the mind, even unconscious, right? Our thoughts fabricate the forms that we utilize in life. This is not a conscious process. This is an unconscious process, but we all form our physical body with our mind, our needs, and the imperfections and the advantages that our new physical body will carry according to our mind. Elmo.
Again, you go back and remind that we're not talking about our physical sciences over here, okay? And also remind that our sciences still develop, so what we know of hereditary, we know. What we know about genetics, we know. But you also know there's a lot of things that we do not understand yet, right? So, and I know everybody knows this, just to refresh everybody's mind. Our cells has 46 chromosomes, right? Skin cells, bone cells, brain cells, liver cells, right? It's 46 chromosomes. The sex cells, the gametes, the sperm and the egg or the ovum, have half of it, right? Of 23. Not all the, let's say, the sperms or the millions that we have in each ejaculation have the same 23. Otherwise, all of us would be identical, right? So you have half of the characteristics of the genes of one parent, but not all are the same. Therefore, we can have in a household with 6 siblings, they'd be quite different apart because they are not come from the same absolute genetic pool, right? In the book, which book is that? Sigismund, the Reincarnation of Sigismund?
The missionaries of the light.
We learned that in the process of conception, especially in those, Sigismund was a extraordinary, not an ordinary like we're dealing over here, kind of reincarnation. But there is a group of specialized spirits that even work in the selection of the best sperm to reach that egg and fertilize that egg, to provide the best possible physical body for that spirit to express itself and to go through the necessary lessons. What I'm saying here is that what we know in our sciences, if there is, let's say, a dominant gene, the gene will be expressed, right? It will be expressed because it's a dominant gene, okay? If you are type, let's say, if we see that the gene for blood type A, that A will be expressed. If you have a type O, you only be type O is a recessive gene. It will only be expressed if the other side is also O, right? So mom gives the gene for O, daddy gives the gene for O, and you are type O. If mom gives the type A or daddy gives the type A, and mom or daddy gives the type O, you'll be type A. A is dominant. That we know. Well, what I'm trying to make sure here is that what we know in genetics and heredity, we know and it's applied, and it will always be expressed. But I'm also saying there's a lot of things that can be selected in the spiritual world for the formation of that new body that will propitiate that spirit the best possibility of express itself and the best possibility to go there to fulfill its goal, its objectives for that reincarnation. So they may select these or that aspects that are, even if it's dominant or recessive, that perhaps that specific gamete carries, and that will be selected for the formation of that new body. So hereditary, in accordance to genetic, is a law, and it's not going to be passed by. It's not going to be ignored. But there is a way to go around, the same way I always use, that we go around the law of gravity and are able to put big planes up in the air.
Okay. So we finished this chapter. Elmo, I hesitate here and start a new chapter because there's so many things on the other chapter that I think we are going to do one, at most 1/3 of it, and we have to restart all over again next month. So I don't know what you think.
That's fine with me.
What?
Yeah, it's a long chapter, it's an important chapter.
Yeah.
We can do 30 next month.
I think
Because the thing is, these two are so related. I don't know if 31 it's also very related or it's a completely different story. Yeah, the next one, Julie's already born. That's fine. That's fine. I'll tackle it.
Yeah. Yeah, this chapter 30 finishes with Julio being reborn, right? And then the 31 is his struggles as a baby, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, we have 20 minutes, so we are going to start it and stop very early on the chapter.
Yeah, then I do have to start all over again. Yeah.
Yeah. So I rather talk a little bit more about the chapter we just finished if anyone has an additional doubt, questions, thoughts, because it was a lot of information there, and a lot of complex information there. So I don't know. Let's see if we can have some Q&A here on this chapter we just finished. No? Yes, Ebony. Thanks.
The discussion that was had about animals, if you can go back to it, the part about animals, right.
Here.
Yes, thank you. So, this might just be a philosophical question, I don't know. But when animals reincarnate and and we use our bodies as their bodies as food, does that mean that we're actually interrupting their reincarnation process? I don't know.
No, first, animals do not reincarnate, right? Reincarnation is a necessity to repair and to learn. That is our when you become a spirit, you reincarnate. Animals just well, they incarnate or they are born, they don't reincarnate. And again, we need to separate, yes, we need to separate us as individual spirits and understand that we were never a cockroach or a dog or a whale. We went through, as a spiritual principle, we went through the phase of the animal learning what we needed. So in let's say when fish is a collective entity, right? So you see how fish, they swim in groups, right? That is one spiritual principle with all the group. They do all the same thing. The spiritual principle is associated to the group, learning what it needs in that phase. We become individual spiritual principle, not spirit, in the mammal phase, in the latest phase of the animal evolution, when the animals already have fragmentary intelligence, right? So you can teach them. You cannot teach a fish. You can teach a dog or a cat or a horse, right? So in that phase, again, it's not an individual spirit in it. It's a spirit, it's an intelligent principle associated with it, learning what it needs to eventually become an individual spirit. So now, in terms of eating animals, again, there are primitive tribes that eat humans, right? Does it interrupt the evolutionary process? It does not, because in the end, it's just matter, right? It's not, when you are eating the animal, you are not eating the spiritual principle that is associated to the animal. You are eating flesh, which is matter. So it doesn't really interfere in the sense of interrupt or anything. It's just, again, we, as a more evolved spirit, we won't have the need to eat flesh because we will have learned to absorb better, more useful energy from the air and from other resources to feed ourselves. But at our stage of evolution, the majority of us still needs flesh because we don't know how to take proteins and whatever is needed from other sources, right? If we are learning, we are evolving. There are more and more people that do not eat meat, right? Red meat first, then white meat, then fish, But it's a process that we're still evolving. But, in terms of causing harm to the intelligent principle, we don't. The same way that the primitive people, when they ate their tribes that they conquered, they were not causing any harm to the spirit. They were just eating the flesh. Okay, Elmo, anything here?
Yeah. So first, I agree with Ron 100%. Okay. And I'm saying that because you find individuals in spiritism, you find books that you not quite agree with João and I. Back him up on here. Agree. I agree. It's purely philosophical, but it's just as valuable as any other question, perhaps even more. Let's imagine, let's say, a lion that eats a gazelle, or a snake that eats a frog, or a bass that eats a minnow, right? We are very comfortable with the natural process of all those healings, if you want to use the word, right? Yeah, I hope no one here has a problem with a lion catching a gazelle and feeding on it. I hope nobody has a problem with a snake who hunts and catch a frog. There is a necessity of those animals to feed on those other animals. So you said philosophically, I believe philosophically also there are some species out there that their function in this natural cycle of life is to eventually become the nutrient of other animals. They are fulfilling that objective in the cycle of life. Okay. We come to a point in our anthropological development that we are growing so fast, especially the brain was growing so fast that you needed extra nutrients, and we figure out that we could get good amount, especially of protein for that brain that needed a lot of things if you learn to consume animal flesh. So you went from being primarily vegetarian, eat roots and grains and fruits, and we learn to consume flesh. I don't think anybody had a problem at that time, right? So I don't think there is any interruption. There is continuity of that process, of that cycle of life. The same way that the lions eating a gazelle is fine, right? The same way that a shark eating a dolphin, the nice dolphin, it's fine because that's the process, that's the natural cycle of life. Will we as individualizing intelligent principle evolve enough that we'll learn to no longer require, which what we already learned, required to consume animal flesh? I hope so. I'm not one of them. No, I'm living there for the next incarnation. I have much bigger problems to deal with right now, right? But I think that eventually you'll be able to utilize our intellectual abilities to supplement all the necessary requirements for nutrition out of anything else than consuming animal flesh. And just as a note also, and I say that because some you might read in books, might have heard already from other spiritists over there that some of them argue that the individualization of the intelligent principle develops with the development of the pineal gland. And that happens at the level of fish. Fish have pineal gland. So from that point on, they think that those all individualized intelligent principle, which, as Jean said, I disagree. But you're going to see that if you research on that.
Thank you for explaining. I actually got a bit confused earlier on in this week when I read in a book written by a spiritist that animals reincarnate. So thank you so much for clarifying that.
Yeah, and again, it's words, right? You want to say that animals reincarnate. When you define the concept of reincarnation as a need to repair the mistakes and learn for our growth, trials, and atonements, right? That's the need for reincarnation, is trials and atonement. Animals don't have atonement because they don't have responsibility for their action. They just need to learn. So it doesn't fulfill the concept of reincarnation. But if the spirits in the spirits book tells us many times, you need to choose your words. You need to define what word use for what. So my understanding of the concept of reincarnation in spiritism is a need for trials and atonement. So if you don't need trials and atonements, you don't need reincarnation. So I don't see animals or plants reincarnating. I think you can call it new incarnations, yes, or new existences. I prefer, but I don't like to call it reincarnation. Elmo, what do you think?
Again, I mean, I agree 100%. And I think it's important. I thank you, Ebony, to bring those, because we're going to face those contradictions, so to say, from time to time as we read. Okay? I cannot imagine that a buffalo has anything is responsible for anything, and that's why a lion eats it, right? I can imagine that being the case, right? Otherwise, you have to ask, but what did the buffalo did? Buffalo is 100% herbivore. It doesn't eat any meat. It never killed anything. Why it has to be died at the mouth of a lion? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me that a sardine is an individualized intelligent principle. Because if it is, then it's then it already has a free will that it's responsible for. It's already has imprinted the divine laws in their consciences and is responsible to utilizing that. And I'm sorry, I don't think a sardine had reached that level yet. So I agree it's wrong, 100%, but yes, and thank you for that. You're going to read different things, and you have to decide which side you take, using your reason, of course.
Yeah. And that's why it's also important to study in group and to bring questions and doubts, because when we are, when we're doing everything by ourselves, we are limited. And actually our own biases play a role in it, right? So interpret things in a way that it can be prejudicial, harmful to ourselves. So, it's important for us to always, listen to different speakers, listen to study in different classes, and bring our questions. So thanks, Ebony.
Thank you.
I was this last weekend, on a different note, there is every year a group of youth retreat, Spiritist youth retreat that happens here in Connecticut. This last weekend, there was a group of 130 youth that spent 3 days in the middle of the woods together in different Spiritist practices, and you see, the new generation that is coming, and one of the guys that came, he actually is a Brazilian that studies in Buenos Aires, study medicine. He stayed here with me. He's 20 years old and he's vegetarian, has been a vegetarian all his life. And you see how, and he is actively involved in the Spiritist work in the International Spiritist Council, organization of the World Congress that is going to happen next year in Punta del Este in Uruguay, and he's part of the youth part of the Congress, which is going to be the first youth World Congress. And you see, right, that he already brings with him traces of a more evolved spirit that makes his wise choices from a young age, right? And as Elmo said, me and him, we are still not there, but we learn, we try to practice and evolve, and we move forward. But it's important to see that the youth is active in the continuation of learning and disseminating Spiritism. Okay. Any additional comments, questions? Okay, I think it was good that we had these discussions and we left chapter 30 for next month, because there is a lot to discuss. I actually asked Elmo to study the chapter because there is a lot of medicine/spirituality in the process of that, with things that we're going to read the next chapter. So we're going to discuss it next month. This next Sunday, it's the second Sunday, so we're going to study the Gospel according to Spiritism. Okay. Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Certainly. Thank you very much, John and Elmo, and thank you, Sarita, for reading today, and everyone who has been participating. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks to be together again as brothers and sisters for our study of the book Heaven and Earth, chapter 29, that being of reincarnation. Reincarnation is a major change for both a new soul and the mother. There is a deeply connected bond between soul and soul. An unborn child will obtain what it needs biologically to form the flesh materially. A new perispirit is being reformatted according to the needed requirements of this new incarnation. All phases of the developing human fetus will be relived during the early pregnancy stages. The law of progress applies on the evolutionary path, which provides many types of experiences that are necessary for review, repair, and growth. Our mind is also a vital aspect of this process and progress. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, the counselors, the mediums, the workers, and all participants. We pray now for inner peace, and especially for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritus centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and night. As we close today, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace prevail. So be it.